So what better way to start the Monday off than with these two great cats? Don, how are you, sir? You had a kind of a week off, I guess, last week.
I did have a week off. I enjoyed my week off. I went and played a lot of golf on my week off. That's what I always do when I have a week off. You kidding me?
That's got basketball coming up, of course. Got another football game this week as the Hoosiers get back underway. Charlie's with us today as well. Charlie, how you doing, sir?
How you guys doing?
Doing
tired,
fine.
to be honest with you, man. I got home at 3 o'clock yesterday. Tomorrow, I guess, 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't even get my words out. Flight, weather, and all things, but all good. We're all good.
Trooper, man. What a trooper. Don, I know you were out at basketball practice some last week. You got to see some of that before things get started?
Yeah, I did. I went down to Thursday's practice. It was a MASH unit that I was watching. They had a bunch of guys around the sidelines, a couple of ankle twists and things that they were dealing with. But you know, what interests me most about Mike Woodson at this point is the teaching that he's doing. He's a really good teacher of the game of basketball, and he's getting out of his kids, I think, everything you would want to see at this point. Obviously, and he's kind of an interesting guy. He's not necessarily, he doesn't have the same style as Bob Knight. I mean, he gets after it, but it's in a different way. He does a little bit of it with humor and that kind of thing. I mean, he's just an interesting dude. And honestly, I think these kids are learning. I think they're enjoying practicing, which, you know, a lot of times I'm not sure that that's always the case with basketball players or football players or anybody. Practice is a lot of the journeyman type stuff that you have to do to get ready. But I think these kids are enjoying themselves. That struck me. How hard they practice strikes me. And the fact that they played so well in the Bahamas defensively, and Mike decided to make sure that was the first thing that he installed, I think was critical. And now, of course, they're getting a chance to work on offense and how he wants to play offensive basketball and what he brings to the table in that vein. And, you know, when we start having talk shows with him and those kinds of things, we'll get maybe a better insight into what he feels is the style that he wants to play. But I think it's going to be more of a professional look, you know, an NBA look to this, the way they play basketball, rather than what we've seen perhaps in the past.
And by that, I think you mean like more positionless basketball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think it's going to be necessarily set plays. There'll be set plays like there is in with every basketball team, and every coach has set plays, things that you want to do out of timeouts and those kinds of things. But and if you think about it, I mean, Bob Knight was a motion offense guy. It was positionless basketball in some respects. I mean, Charlie can talk better to that than I can, but when you watched Indiana play back in the day, when Coach Knight was teaching the motion offense to his players, it was basically positionless basketball. Guys had to do a lot of different things, and I think that's the way the game has transitioned.
Charlie, you know about the not having set plays, just having to make the right decisions.
Yeah. I mean, it was all positionless before even it was a name, right? Because it was rules based, right? It's rules based. It's position based where you are on the court. So I definitely see that happening with more actions, right? You know, not necessarily sets. It's just
right
situation set up. Coach Knight was the same way. You know, there's your court, you're set the court up a certain way. Players got certain actions they're going to set, and that was the spark to play. And that's also hard to watch film on, right? I mean, because it's not predictable. Right. I mean, to the players it is because of the way we play, and you kind of understand. Like if I know Brian Evans is below me, there's a screen coming and a rescreen for a flare. It is what it is. That's happening. That's Brian Evans, right? I got Todd Linton under me. I know I'm getting a back cut. It's just, I mean, it's the nature of the game, right? So, right. But yeah, I'm more than certain those players are probably enjoying Coach Woodson, not only for the teaching aspect, but the way they also are able to maximize on their potential.
And Don, I would think that these individual players getting to play like that, it does exactly what Charlie just said, maximize their potential because their potentials are different and they can find different ways to get to that point.
Right. Yeah, there's no question. And it takes time. I mean, to play basketball that way, it requires you to think. But then after a while, you can't be thinking because that slows you
Yeah.
down. So you've got to get used to this whole situation. You've got to understand what you're supposed to do, and then it's got to become second nature. And once that happens, then you see a functioning basketball team from an offensive standpoint. And then the other side of it is how hard you play at the defensive end. And that to me was getting these guys to buy into that initially, and then to show that in those games down in the Bahamas, because that team played really good defensive basketball in those two games down there against that Serbian team that was tall, long and tall, great. Supposedly their reputation was great outside shooters, and Indiana shut them down. And to do that the first time out against a team in two ball games, I thought that was very impressive.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to talk to Coach Woodson at Big Ten Media Day Friday, and I think that's one of the things I mentioned to him was the most impressive thing to me was to take a team that has a bunch of new faces on it with a new coaching staff and to go play against a team that is not a bunch of kids, but some semi-pros that have been together for a long time, and to do what they did, I was very, very impressed.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And look, it's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect yet, certainly, and it's never going to be perfect, but it's nowhere ingrained like it's going to be at some point. Again, it's all about teaching at this juncture. It's all about getting guys to understand their roles and that type of thing. And that's the other thing about Mike, because he, in that press conference that you mentioned, he talked about the fact that when he got there, that there were people, coaches that told him this guy can't do this and this guy can't do that. And he said, wait a second, I don't want to hear that. He said, you tell me these guys are all going to be coached by you guys. You can't tell me that they can't do this. Let's let them prove that they can't. And then we'll set it up so that there's great opportunities for them to do other things. But don't tell me that they can't do this. Don't tell me this guy can't shoot. It's your job to make sure he can shoot. And so I like that. I mean, that's a different approach.
Oh, it's tremendous. And you talk about someone who has confidence in his players and he has confidence in himself and what he can bring to the table. And I think that those are two great pieces because that's what you need for success. And I think that it's looking pretty good right now. And I do like what I've seen and what I've heard. It's like there's no BS. It's like, here's how it's going to be. And there's absolutely no BS with Mike Woodson. That's another great thing. He's very open and honest with everything, with the players, with the media, with the fans.
Right. No, there's no doubt. And it's all going to work out. There's no question in my mind that this is going to be a really good basketball program at Indiana.
Absolutely. Charlie, you know about being in a good basketball program as well. But what are your thoughts from what you've seen so far from Coach Woodson?
Well, I mean, a couple of things stick out for me, according to the media day, something he talked about. But I want to go back to what Don, you talked about with Coach Woodson saying, hey, I don't want to hear about the biases of what somebody can't do. Because a new coach coming in, you don't want to have prejudgments on players because now we're limiting. I was going to say that word Jim just said, open. You have to be open at the NBA level. I mean, because you got players that are coming in, you know, first of all, these are professionals, so you have to be open to the way they train, the way they play, and kind of from their style of play, help them mold into what you're going to do in your system. So knowing Coach Woodson is a former player, that's what I just heard about Coach Woodson. He's taking his former player side and saying, hey, don't tell me what I can't do. Let me show you. Give me the opportunity to put back my resume out here for you. That's why I'm here. And that's what I was going to talk about. These players, to maximize on their potential, they now know why they're at Indiana, to do what they do best and delegate the rest. And then with that point from being on, the impressive part for me from Coach Woodson was the honesty, the really brutal honesty about when he first started coaching in the NBA, he didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know what he was doing. And to give a story about that shows his openness and vulnerability. And then he got the itch to coach. and the itch to get better. And then I'm more than certain he tapped to his resources. And then you can look years later to the things he's done. So I look forward to really consistency. I don't know what it's going to be like every single game winning, but I just look forward to seeing a lot of consistency, a lot of continuity, and a lot of players really, again, looking to reach their potential and knowing their roles and knowing why they're at Indiana playing basketball.
And I think the other thing about that, Charlie, too, these kids, that's why I think the kids have bought in.
Yeah.
I think they've bought into the fact that this guy's really trying to help them become the best that they can be.
That's right.
That's number one. And then number two, they're having fun.
That's right.
And
that's right.
I mean, what are you playing basketball for if you're not going to have fun?
That's right. That's right.
You know, that's part of whatever sport you're playing, you better be having some fun doing it,
right.
or you shouldn't be doing it because it's not going to pay off for you.
Yeah, it's gotten too serious. I mean, I think overall, I mean, that's another story, but like it's gotten too serious. You gotta have fun at it. You gotta, because again, being with each other for almost 6 months, you're gonna have the ups and downs, but you gotta have that silver lining for me. And you just said it, man. Fun is in fundamentals, by the way. You gotta have fun.